What happens when the powerful are left unchecked? When those who hold all the cards believe they are untouchable, what happens when someone decides to change the rules? In a world where wealth and influence can silence almost anyone, there exists a place that symbolizes everything wrong with such a system. A sanctuary for predators, disguised as paradise. Welcome to Golden Haven, an opulent retirement home nestled behind towering iron gates and adorned with priceless art. It is a place where billionaires, ex-politicians, and men whose names once commanded nations spend their final days basking in luxury, far removed from the consequences of their past actions. But beneath the surface of this glittering haven lies a secret so dark, so devastating, that it would shake even the most jaded among us. A secret known only to one woman. A woman who had lived her life on the fringes of society, invisible to those who now found themselves at her mercy. Her name is Marissa Johnson. You may not know her yet, but by the time this story ends, you will never forget her. She was neither born into privilege nor granted a seat at the table of power, yet she became the architect of a reckoning that no one saw coming. If you're new here, welcome to Vic's True Crime Stories, where we explore the most haunting and unforgettable cases ever recorded. This is a tale that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about morality, justice, and the lengths one person might go to right the wrongs of the past. If you want to hear more stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. By the end of this video, you'll understand why some call Marissa a monster, while others see her as a martyr. But before we unravel the truth, let me take you back to the beginning, to the moments that shaped her, broke her, and ultimately forged her into the woman who dared to challenge the gods of Golden Haven. Marissa Johnson's story begins not with grandeur or privilege, but in the quiet corners of other people's lives. She grew up scrubbing floors that gleamed brighter than any dream she dared to have, folding linens softer than the worn blankets she slept under. Her childhood wasn't filled with laughter or carefree days. It was spent trailing behind her mother, a housemaid who worked tirelessly to keep food on their table. Together, they moved from one sprawling estate to another, always on the outside looking in. Marissa learned early what it meant to be invisible, to blend into the background while the wealthy lived their lives around her. She was just a child, really, a girl too young to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. Yet there she was, working in mansions she would never own, dreaming of a future that felt impossibly out of reach. Even then, though, she had dreams. Small ones, fragile ones, like whispers carried on the wind. Dreams of a life where she could walk through those same halls as an equal, where she could sit at the table instead of clearing it. But those dreams were stolen from her long before they ever had a chance to take root, crushed under the heel of circumstances far beyond her control. When Marissa was 15, something happened that would alter the course of her life forever. It began innocently enough, or so it appeared at first. A man entered her world, someone older, wealthier, and draped in charm. To everyone else, he seemed like a pillar of kindness, a figure of respectability. But beneath that polished exterior lay something far more dangerous, something Marissa couldn't have anticipated. He noticed her in ways no one should notice a child. His words were sweet, his gestures generous, and for a brief moment, she allowed herself to believe he might see her as more than just another faceless worker in the background. But kindness can often be a mask, hiding intentions that are anything but pure. This man, this seemingly benevolent presence, began to weave himself into Marissa's life in ways that made her uncomfortable, though she didn't fully understand why. Gifts appeared when no one was looking. Expensive dresses, jewelry, even cash slipped into her hand with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. At first, she thought it strange but harmless. After all, how could she question someone who held so much power? Someone whose very name opened doors she could only imagine walking through? Then came the night that changed everything. The night when innocence was shattered and replaced with a pain so deep it left scars that would never fade. Who was this man? What did he do to Marissa? And why does his name still send shivers down the spines of those who hear it? These questions linger in the air, heavy with unspoken truths, waiting to be answered. But for now, let's pause here, for the answers lie ahead, and they are darker than you might expect. Let me tell you about Kenneth Harris. To the outside world, He was a man of great importance, someone whose name carried weight in certain circles. He was charming, always dressed impeccably, his silver hair catching the light as though it were spun from something precious. People admired him, trusted him even. He spoke with authority but tempered it with warmth, or so it seemed. His smile could disarm, his words could soothe, and his presence commanded respect. At 15, Marissa was too young to see these gestures for what they truly were, a calculated effort to isolate her, to make her feel indebted to him. She thought maybe he meant well, that perhaps he saw something in her worth saving. But the truth was far more sinister. The gifts became more frequent, more personal. A silk scarf here, a bracelet there, each one accompanied by a comment designed to blur the lines between kindness and control. "You deserve better than this life," he told her once, his voice low and deliberate. "I can give you opportunities others wouldn't dare dream of." The problem wasn't just the gifts themselves, it was how they made her feel. Confused, uneasy, yet unable to pull away. He was building a web, strand by strand, and Marissa didn't realize until it was too late that she was caught in it. Then came the night that changed everything. Her mother had gone home early, leaving Marissa alone to finish cleaning the sprawling estate. The house was quiet, save for the faint ticking of a clock somewhere in the distance. She found herself in the library, a room filled with towering shelves of books and heavy leather furniture. The air smelled faintly of aged paper and polished wood, but beneath it all lingered an unease she couldn't shake. That's when he appeared, stepping into the room with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He moved closer, his movements slow and deliberate, as if savoring every second. "You've been such a good girl," he said, his voice calm, almost soothing. But there was something wrong, something in the way he looked at her, something in the way his hands reached out before she could react. Panic surged through her veins as he pulled her close, forcing her down onto the cold leather couch. Every instinct screamed at her to fight back, to run, to scream, but fear rooted her in place. The world seemed to spin out of focus as his weight pressed against her, muffling her cries with his palm. Time lost all meaning. Minutes stretched into hours, reality blurred into nightmare. And when it was over, he simply straightened his tie, looked at her with an expression devoid of remorse, and whispered, "This is our little secret." That horrific night in the library wasn't the end of Marissa's suffering. It was only the beginning. Because if you think that was the worst part of her nightmare, you're wrong. The aftermath of that night in the library left Marissa shattered, though the wounds weren't immediately visible. Days turned into weeks, and she tried to bury what had happened, to pretend it didn't exist. But her body began to betray her. Fatigue clung to her like a second skin, no matter how much rest she got. Strange rashes appeared on her skin, unexplained and relentless. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and deep down, she feared she already knew the answer. Still, she went to a clinic, hoping against hope that there might be some other explanation. The diagnosis hit her like a freight train: HIV. Marissa's mind raced. How could this have happened? She wasn't reckless. She hadn't done anything to put herself at risk. Then it dawned on her. The man who had stolen so much from her that night might have taken even more. Desperate for answers, she confronted Kenneth Harris. Sitting across from him in his opulent study, surrounded by the trappings of his wealth and power, she demanded to know if he had given her the disease. His response sent chills through her. He leaned back in his chair, sipping brandy as though discussing nothing more consequential than the weather. "Consider this," he said, his tone smooth and chilling, "a reminder of your place." That moment crystallized everything Marissa had come to understand about the world she lived in. A world where men like Kenneth Harris held all the cards, where justice was a luxury reserved for those with money and influence. She tried to fight back, to seek help from the systems designed to protect people like her. But they failed her, one by one. The police dismissed her claims, calling her a liar, a gold digger trying to extort a wealthy man. Lawyers laughed in her face, telling her she had no case without evidence. Even her own community turned its back, whispering cruel lies about how she must have brought it upon herself. Her mother, once her only ally, refused to stand by her side. Do you know what happens to girls like us who accuse men like him? She had snapped, tears streaming down her face. We lose everything. You'll ruin us. So Marissa stayed silent, carrying the weight of her pain alone. But silence didn't heal her wounds, it only deepened them. Night after night, she replayed that moment in the library, the sound of his voice, the feel of his hands, the cold emptiness in his eyes. And with each passing day, something inside her began to break. In that moment, Marissa realized something terrifying. No one was coming to save her. No knight in shining armor, no court of law, no higher power would step in to make things right. If she wanted justice, she would have to take it herself. Hatred festered in her heart, sharp and unrelenting. Hatred for Kenneth Harris, for the system that protected him, for the rich who viewed people like her as disposable toys. She vowed then and there that the world would pay for what had been done to her. Not just Kenneth Harris, but all of them. All of the predators who believed themselves untouchable, who thought their wealth and power made them invincible. Years passed, and the pain of her past hardened into resolve. Marissa became someone new, someone driven by a singular purpose. She waited, biding her time, until the moment presented itself. And years later, she found her chance, in a place called Golden Haven. Golden Haven was more than just a retirement home, it was a fortress built for kings. A sanctuary where the powerful could retreat from the world, shielded by thick iron gates and walls adorned with priceless art. It was a place where billionaires, ex-politicians, and men whose names had once commanded nations spent their final days wrapped in luxury. To the outside world, they were untouchable, their sins buried beneath layers of wealth and influence. But within those gilded walls, something far darker simmered, secrets that festered, crimes long forgotten by everyone except their victims. Marissa Johnson walked into Golden Haven not as an avenger but as a caregiver, blending seamlessly into the background. No one paid much attention to her at first. She was just another face among the staff, quiet and unassuming, moving through the halls with purpose. But there was something about her, a calmness in her demeanor, a sharpness in her gaze, that hinted at a deeper story. She carried herself with precision, every movement deliberate, every word measured. To the residents, she was invisible, just another worker tending to their needs. They never suspected that beneath her composed exterior lay a mind calculating, planning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The men of Golden Haven were predators, though their claws had dulled with age. Their hands still wandered, their voices still dripped with entitlement. They saw Marissa as nothing more than a nameless girl, someone disposable, someone who existed only to serve them. They trusted her completely, never questioning her motives or noticing the way she watched them so intently. Every careless mistake they made, every wound they ignored, every moment of vulnerability, they handed her the tools she needed without even realizing it. Trust can be a dangerous thing, especially when placed in the wrong hands. Marissa knew their weaknesses better than they did. She understood their fragility, their arrogance, their belief that they were untouchable. And she used it all to her advantage. Slowly, methodically, she began to weave her plan, piece by piece. Marissa's plan was as precise as it was merciless. She didn't act impulsively or out of blind rage. Every step she took was calculated, every move deliberate. The residents of Golden Haven had spent their lives believing they were untouchable, but Marissa knew better than anyone that even the strongest fortresses could crumble if you found the right cracks. And so, she began her work, methodically targeting the men who had once commanded industries and crushed nations with impunity. It started subtly. At first, no one noticed anything unusual. A small cut here, a minor wound there, things easily dismissed as accidents or the natural frailty of aging. But then came the fatigue, creeping in like an unwelcome guest. The men grew weaker, their energy slipping away despite the gourmet meals prepared for them and the finest medical care money could buy. Rashes appeared on their skin, unexplained and stubborn. Weight melted off their frames, leaving them gaunt and hollow-eyed. Panic began to spread among the residents, whispers filling the halls where laughter and arrogance had once reigned supreme. Doctors were called in, tests ordered, and confusion turned to horror when the results came back: HIV. How could this happen? In a place as pristine and protected as Golden Haven, how had such a thing occurred? Questions swirled, accusations flew, and paranoia took root faster than any virus ever could. The men who had once been untouchable now sat in their silk robes, powerless and afraid, their bodies betraying them in ways they couldn't comprehend. For years, they had viewed others as disposable, their actions justified by their wealth and status. Now, they faced the same helplessness they had inflicted upon countless victims. Amid the chaos, one person began to notice patterns that others missed. Eleanor Park, a nurse at Golden Haven, wasn't someone who blended into the background. She paid attention to details, saw connections where others saw only coincidence. Something about Marissa caught her eye. The way she moved through the halls with quiet confidence, the way she never seemed surprised by the unraveling health of the residents. One night, driven by suspicion and curiosity, Eleanor broke into Marissa's office. What she found sent shockwaves through her entire being. Marissa's medical records, proof of her own HIV diagnosis, and evidence linking her to the mysterious outbreak spreading through Golden Haven. The confrontation came swiftly. Eleanor confronted Marissa, her voice trembling with anger and disbelief. "You did this," she accused, the words hanging heavy in the air between them. Marissa didn't deny it. There was no pleading, no explanation, just a calm tilt of her head and a simple statement: "They had it coming." Those 5 words carried the weight of years of suffering, of pain buried so deep it had transformed into something far darker. But the truth doesn't stay hidden forever, not even in a place like Golden Haven. When Eleanor uncovered Marissa's secret, the consequences rippled outward, shaking the foundation of the sanctuary itself. The truth came out, but not without consequences. What happened next shocked everyone. Lives were changed, alliances shattered, and the carefully constructed world of Golden Haven began to collapse under the weight of its own sins. And yet, we're not done. Not quite. Who would emerge victorious? Who would pay the ultimate price? These answers lie just ahead, but for now, let the tension linger, let the questions burn in your mind. The moment Marissa's actions came to light, Golden Haven erupted into chaos. The residents who had once believed themselves untouchable now faced a fate they couldn't buy their way out of. Lawyers scrambled to contain the damage, families distanced themselves from the scandal, and the press dug up sins long buried under paychecks and threats. But among the men caught in this web of reckoning, one name stood out: Senator Charles Whitmore. A man whose reputation was built on power, influence, and an unshakable image of respectability. For him, this wasn't just about exposure, it was about survival. Whitmore knew the stakes were higher for him than for anyone else. His legacy, his career, his very identity were at risk of being erased by the fallout. Desperation clawed at him as he realized that Marissa's vengeance wasn't just personal, it was public. Her actions had exposed not only his secrets but also the rot beneath the polished surface of his life. He couldn't let her win. He wouldn't. And so, he turned to the one person he trusted most to handle problems like this: his daughter, Veronica Whitmore. Veronica was not a woman to be underestimated. She was carved from steel and silence, a master of erasing problems before they could become scandals. To her, Marissa wasn't a victim or a vigilante, she was simply an obstacle that needed to be removed. With cold efficiency, Veronica set her plan into motion. In the dead of night, Marissa was taken, bound, gagged, and thrown into a darkened room where the air smelled of gasoline and decay. There was no trial, no opportunity for her to explain herself. Veronica didn't ask questions. She didn't care about motives or morality. She simply watched as fire consumed what remained of Marissa's physical presence. But here's the thing about people like Marissa: they don't disappear quietly. Before she vanished, she left behind something that would change everything. A video message, recorded with chilling calmness and unwavering resolve. In it, she sat before the camera, her eyes steady, her voice clear, delivering words that would echo far beyond her presumed death. That message became the spark that ignited a firestorm, forcing the world to confront uncomfortable truths about justice, power, and accountability. This is where things get intense. Imagine sitting in front of your screen, watching Marissa's final message unfold. Her words pierce through the noise, forcing you to question everything you thought you knew about right and wrong. What did she say? How did the world react? And most importantly, did her sacrifice mean nothing, or did it ignite something far greater than anyone could have anticipated? Marissa's video message was short, but its impact was anything but. "I was never given a choice," she began, her tone calm but laced with an undercurrent of pain. "Neither were they." Those simple sentences held within them the entirety of her story, her suffering, her rage, her reckoning. It was as if she had distilled years of injustice into those few words, forcing the world to see what she had seen, to feel what she had felt. People watched it over and over, dissecting every syllable, debating every nuance. Some called her a hero, a woman who had dared to challenge a system rigged against the vulnerable. They saw her actions as a necessary evil, a violent act of justice in a world where justice had failed too many times before. Others condemned her without hesitation, labeling her a monster, a bioterrorist who had crossed lines no one should ever cross. The arguments raged on, dividing families, communities, even nations. But one thing was undeniable. Marissa Johnson had changed the conversation. She had forced the world to confront uncomfortable truths about power, privilege, and the lengths people will go to when pushed to their breaking point. Her crusade also sparked tangible change. Investigations into Golden Haven uncovered decades of abuse, leading to reforms that rippled far beyond its walls. Care facilities faced stricter regulations, oversight became more rigorous, and victims who had been silenced for years finally found the courage to step forward. Marissa's actions ignited a movement, one that sought to hold the powerful accountable in ways the law had failed to do. Marissa may have vanished, but her spirit lingers, in the quiet corners of forgotten places, in the hearts of those who refuse to stay silent, in the minds of those who fear what happens when the powerless find their voice. Whether you see her as a martyr or a monster, one thing is certain: her story isn't over. Not really. Because somewhere, in the darkest parts of our world, another girl may already be rising. And this time, we might not see her coming until it's too late. As we reach the end of Marissa's story, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on the themes that have woven themselves through every chapter of her journey. This is a tale about power, the kind that corrupts, that blinds, that allows people to believe they are untouchable. Marissa didn't just challenge individuals. She exposed an entire structure designed to protect the powerful at all costs. Her actions forced us to confront uncomfortable truths, but they also left lingering questions. Was she a villain or a victim? Did she make the world safer by holding predators accountable, or did she make it more dangerous by operating outside the bounds of morality? These aren't easy questions to answer, and perhaps that's the point. Maybe the most haunting stories are the ones that refuse to give us closure, the ones that stay with us long after the final words are spoken. So now I'll leave you with this thought: what would you have done in her shoes? If you were Marissa, if you had endured everything she endured, suffered every betrayal, faced every injustice, what line would you be willing to cross? Would you fight back, no matter the cost? Or would you walk away, hoping someone else might step up where the system failed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how this story resonated with you. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Vic's true crime stories. If this chilling tale stayed with you, don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment, and share it with others who crave gripping narratives. And if you're new here, consider subscribing so you never miss an episode. Trust me, I've got another shocking story coming your way soon. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, some stories may end, but their echoes last forever.